What's up, you wonderful people? Welcome to the second part of assemblies. I think there's going to be 3 in this, but we're gonna do 2 right now, see what we get, and then probably throw in a third later. So let's go ahead and open up our assembly from before. So if you have just a blank screen, what you can do is you click on the little data panel here, and if you see, you'll see you have all your projects here. I have backhoe here, and then check it out. Down here, I have my main assembly. These are all my components I can bring in. This is my main assembly. I opened up that main assembly. Ooh, that looks familiar. We definitely had something like this before. Look at this. Yep, and that is working the way I want it to work. It's still not limited, right? You're still kind of like pushing through things, but you can see this here. This is like not, it shouldn't be there, but I'm moving. It's moving the way we want it to move with the correct joints. Let me line this up. Cool. We're going to add a few things to this during this. So for this, we're going to need these 2 hydraulic pistons. We need short and long. The short one's going to go to this component right here, and the long one's going to go to this hydraulic cylinder here. So I'm going to take this short one, I'm going to drag it in, and move it kind of in the ballpark of where I want it, right? So like over here, because it's going to go to that one, I hit OK. And then I take the long one, drag it in, and then move this one around, kind of like this. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to use a new, say okay, we're going to use a new joint here. I'm going to close this, I don't need to look at that right now. A new joint to get these to slide in and out of these cylinders here. So I click joint, and this one is called, believe it or not, the slider joint. So I click slider, and I go to position, and the first one I'm going to pick, it's just, I'm going to say, it's going to be in, and I'll know I'll have it right if I'm like kind of on this, and I can kind of, I'm right in the middle there, and I can see this. It's kind of hard to see, but I can see there's this cylinder that's been chosen that goes all the way through. So I've got that one. And the other one, I want to say the midpoint. I don't want it to be the end of this. I want it to be the middle of this. So basically the middle of this is going to go into that and slide back and forth. And I click the motion, I see if it works. Yep, that's kind of what we want going on. We're going to set up limits so it doesn't push through, but for right now, perfect. That's going to be working well. If I grab this, that looks good. They're all kind of lined up. I want to do the same thing down here. I click on my joint. Motion, slider, got that. I'm going to go to the inside here. I know I've got it if I can see the whole tube. And now I want to go to the middle of this one. And that sticks there. And then I'm going to say motion just to make sure that works right. Yeah, that's about right. Again, it's going too far, but it's going in it's doing the thing we want it to do. Say, okay, and now this is stuck in here. So I've got these cool joints now. These things that'll slide in and out. Cool. So now we've got these 2 cool piston arms going. Let's add this awesome moving arm right here. Take this guy, drop it in. We're just going to move it kind of to where I want it to be. Doesn't have to be exact. And hit OK. So now the way that this is going to connect in is that we've got these 2. That's interesting, right? These pins here are going to go inside this, and then this arm here is going to go onto this right here. So let's set up those joints. So I'm going to go ahead, click here, motion. We're using cylindrical motions here. It means they'll go around in a circle, but also kind of pivot to the side a little bit if we want to. So we will then go ahead and position. I am going to do, this is going to be between 2 faces. I'm going to go from this face here to this face here, and then my center point, I just want it to be in the middle of that circle. So I got it right there. And then same type of thing up here. This is not quite as simple, right? Because there's no face. So I'm just going to say like from this point here, from this face here to this face, between 2 faces. From this face here to this face here. And then it's like, okay, well, I know I got to be between those 2 faces, but where between it? I'm saying, okay, right here, as long as I got to make sure it looks, there it is. I'm clicking on this, and I can see that there's a little right there. That's perfect. That lines up. Let's see how that looks with motion. Yep, that's looking pretty good. Say okay. And now if I move this, it kind of moves together. That's working. So now I want to get the back of this thing. Let's get kind of look on top. Let's just make sure I've lined it up. There. I want to get this connected to this. So I go ahead and I click joints, motion, cylindrical, got it, between two faces, and I'm going to start off here and say between this face and this face on this circle, so that's that middle point there, and then between two faces again, and I'm looking at this guy here, I'm going to say between this face and this face, and then I want to add this, ooh, it's tough to get to, there we go, right there in that circle, and then motion, let me check, that's looking pretty good, I want it like that, and I say okay, and now check it out, I've got this like, this arm now, that is, it's not limited, but it's starting to look the way we want it to look, right? It's kind of stuck on there, it's starting to look pretty good. All right, so let's get the bucket, right? That scooper part on here. So to do that, the scooper actually has two parts. So if I go into my stuff here, I've got my bucket and I've got my bucket joint. So I'm going to bring in my bucket. And I'm going to just want to move this over here. And you try to like keep things organized. Things get pretty messy. There's no limits on these joints, so things can get pretty out of hand. You try to keep it as organized as possible. And you want this bucket to be facing down, right? And I got this bucket joint. I'm going to bring that into. And again, like, let's bring it over. Let's get it over away from all this other stuff. So they're near each other. And now, I've got the bucket and the bucket joint. And the way this is going to attach is that these two are going to attach through a joint, but it's going to be a new type of joint. It's a rigid joint, meaning it doesn't move at all. It just sticks on here, like almost like if we welded or glued it on. So I'm going to actually close this. We have more room. And I'm saying my joint is going to be rigid. And I'm just going to stick it to right in the middle of this face here. So it's hard to see. This face here, that right there. Click right there in the middle of that face, and then up here, the middle of this face, same thing. Bam, snap it right on there, and say okay. And now this, they're kind of just like snapped together, like Legos, like you glued it together or something. And now we've got this kind of this one piece that's rigidly snapped together. And now I've got to connect this little area to this, and then this area to this. And we're going to use revolute joints for that. So I'm going to say, go ahead and say revolute, and I'm going to say I want, this is going to be a between two faces, between this face and this face, with this being the center, right? I want to say that, make sure that's the center. There's that joint there. And then, again, between two faces here, between this face and this face, with, again, that being the center. Boom, snapped in. That looks good. Now notice, it's just taking this piece. It's not taking this whole thing, but they're connected together. It's just showing you what it'll look like with just that piece. Boom, that's snapped in. Love it. And then we want this arm here to be connected to here. So kind of this hydraulic can pull, and that pulls this arm up. So again, revolute. So here, motion, revolute, the revolute joint, and then we're just going to do between two faces. I'm going to go up here between this face and this face, right in the middle, and then between this face, zoom in here, and this face here. Oh, This face is this face. Between two, I got to make sure to click that. And this face here, and then right in the middle there. Boom! Look at that. That snaps in. That looks good to me. Say OK. And now we've got this. If I move this arm, wow, scoop, scoop, scoop. Now, this is kind of, yours might be looking pretty bananas at this point. And that's okay, because there's no limits on stuff. So what you want to try to do is just try to get it to look kind of pulling and, pieces, moving things a certain way. Like this right now is at 131. I want to maybe just like move this. I just double click on that joint to move that out the right way. Also, like, I'm going to put enter there. This is off center, so I'm just going to move this over. You might have a situation where these are like straight out. You can just kind of change this angle. Just click on the angle and double click, and you can move the angle to where you want it to be, kind of make it work. But you should have something that looks like this at this point. And then we just got to go on there and start moving in all of the limits. We're going to start putting a bunch of limitations on this. So let's jump into it and make it work the way, because we don't want it to be working all crazy. We want to be able to limit. We don't want this to happen. That's not real. That isn't real at all. So let's add some limits.